The message from my CEO came late in the evening, just as I was about to shut down my laptop and leave the quiet office. It was unusual. She rarely messaged employees directly unless something urgent was happening. "Daniel, do you have plans tomorrow night?" I stared at the screen for a moment. My boss, Victoria Hale, was known across the company as brilliant, intimidating, and completely uninterested in anyone's personal life. She ran the company like a battlefield commander. Employees respected her and feared her a little. I typed back carefully that I didn't have any plans. Her reply came instantly. "Good, I've arranged a blind date for you." I blinked twice, convinced I had read it wrong. A blind date from my CEO. Before I could even respond, another message arrived with the restaurant address and the time. "Be there at 7, trust me." Trust her? That was easy when it came to business decisions. She had built Hale Industries from nothing into a company worth hundreds of millions. But when it came to my love life, I wasn't sure how much trust she deserved. Still, saying no to Victoria Hale was something people learned not to do. The next evening I found myself standing outside one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, adjusting my tie and wondering how my life had taken this strange turn. The place was elegant, warm lights glowing through tall glass windows, the quiet sound of a piano drifting through the door. I walked inside, gave the host the reservation name Victoria had sent, and was led to a corner table. "She should be here shortly," the host said. I sat down, trying to imagine what kind of woman my CEO thought would be right for me. Maybe the daughter of one of her wealthy friends. Maybe someone from another company. Maybe this was some strange networking opportunity disguised as a date. 10 minutes later, someone approached the table. I looked up and nearly dropped the glass of water in my hand. Standing there was a young woman with dark hair tied loosely behind her shoulders, wearing a simple blue dress and holding her purse like she wasn't sure she belonged in the restaurant. But that was what shocked me. What shocked me was her face. I had seen it many times before. On the framed photograph that sat on Victoria Hale's desk. "You must be Daniel," she said softly. I stood up automatically. "You're Emily." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You know who I am." I laughed nervously. "Your mother keeps your picture on her desk." Emily Hale. My CEO's daughter. And suddenly, the strange message made terrifying sense. "My mom said she arranged a blind date for me," Emily said, sitting down slowly. "But she refused to tell me who it was." I leaned back in my chair, still trying to process the situation. "So she didn't tell you it was one of her employees?" Emily shook her head, looking just as surprised as I felt. "No, she didn't." For a moment, we both sat there in awkward silence before suddenly laughing at the same time. "Well," she said, "this is definitely the strangest date I've ever been on." And the night had only just begun. At first, both of us were cautious. It's not every day you discover your blind date is connected to the most powerful person in your professional life. But slowly, the tension faded. Emily turned out to be nothing like the image people might imagine of a CEO's daughter. She wasn't arrogant. She didn't act entitled. In fact, she seemed almost embarrassed by her mother's reputation. "She's intense," Emily admitted with a small smile while stirring her tea. "People either admire her or fear her." "Mostly fear," I said. Emily laughed. "I believe that." As the dinner continued, conversation began to flow naturally. Emily told me she worked as a pediatric nurse at a local hospital. It surprised me completely. "You could work anywhere," I said. "Why nursing?" Her answer was simple. "Because it matters." The sincerity in her voice was impossible to ignore. She told me stories about children she helped, families she comforted, nights when the hospital felt overwhelming but also meaningful. The more she spoke, the more I realized she lived in a world very different from her mother's corporate empire. And strangely, that made her even more impressive. "What about you?" she asked. "Mom says you're one of her best employees." I nearly choked on my drink. "She said that." Emily nodded. "She doesn't compliment people often." I thought about that for a moment. Victoria Hale was known for being brutally honest. If she trusted someone, it meant something. "She's tough," I admitted, "but she's fair." Emily smiled faintly. "She wasn't always like that." That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" Emily hesitated, as if deciding how much to say. "When I was younger, my mom was different, warmer, but building the company changed things. She sacrificed a lot to make it successful." Her voice softened. "Sometimes I think she sacrificed too much." There was a sadness in that sentence that lingered between us. For the rest of dinner, we talked about everything from childhood memories to terrible movies we secretly loved. The hours passed so quickly that neither of us noticed the restaurant slowly emptying. When the bill arrived, Emily looked almost surprised. "I guess the date went well," she said. "I think it did." We stepped outside into the cool night air. For a moment we stood there under the streetlights, unsure what came next. Then Emily smiled. "Do you think my mom planned this?" "I'm starting to believe she planned everything." Emily shook her head, amused. "She can be terrifyingly strategic." We both laughed. But there was something else now, a quiet connection neither of us expected when we walked into the restaurant. "Would you like to see each other again?" I asked carefully. Emily didn't hesitate. "I would." What neither of us realized was that this blind date was only the beginning of a plan, much bigger than we imagined. Monday morning at the office felt completely different. Every time I passed Victoria Hale in the hallway, I couldn't stop wondering if she knew how the date had gone. Of course she knew. Victoria Hale knew everything. Late that afternoon, her assistant appeared at my desk. "Ms. Hale would like to see you." My coworkers gave me sympathetic looks as I walked toward the executive floor. Being summoned by the CEO rarely meant anything good. But when I stepped into her office, Victoria didn't look angry. She looked curious. "Well," she said calmly. I blinked. "Well, what?" "The date." "Of course." I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. "It was great." A faint smile appeared on her face. "I expected that." That response stunned me. "You expected it." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "I've been observing you for 3 years, Daniel." That sentence sounded far more intimidating than romantic. "You're intelligent, honest, hardworking. You treat people with respect even when they can't benefit you professionally." She paused. "Those qualities are rare." I wasn't sure how to respond. "And my daughter," she continued, "deserves someone with those qualities." Suddenly, everything made sense. "You planned this." "Of course I did." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Emily refuses to meet the men my social circle introduces to her. She says they're arrogant or shallow." Victoria folded her hands on the desk. "So I found someone different." I shook my head in disbelief. "You arranged a blind date between your daughter and one of your employees." "Yes." "That's incredibly risky." Victoria smiled slightly. "Only if I chose the wrong person." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said something that surprised me even more. "I wasn't just testing you." "What do you mean?" "I was also testing her." I frowned, to see if she would judge someone based on status or money. The room fell quiet. "And?" I asked. Victoria's expression softened just a little. "She didn't." It was the first time I had ever seen genuine pride in her voice. I stood up to leave, still processing the conversation. As I reached the door, Victoria added one final sentence. "Daniel." I turned. "If you hurt my daughter," she said calmly, "you will discover that I am a far more dangerous enemy than employer." I swallowed. Understood. But as I walked out of her office, I couldn't help smiling. Because later that night, I had another date with Emily. And this time, it wouldn't be blind.